All right, everybody, it's the Jerry Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today on the show, we have Amanda Howard of Amanda Howard, Sotheby's International Realty of Huntsville, Alabama. Amanda, it's so good to have you on.
Thank you, Jerry, for having me. It's so exciting to be here.
Thank you for being here. So everybody, if you don't, Amanda should need no introduction, but just in case you don't know who Amanda is, she is the owner of the Sotheby's affiliate of Huntsville, which is Amanda Howard, Sotheby's International Realty. She is a top agent in the country, obviously a top agent in her market and in the country, and with Sotheby's International Realty. With that being said, Amanda, I'm going to just throw two questions on you at once. What did I miss? And I have a feeling you won't show off enough for us, but go ahead and try. And number two, why and how in the world did you get into real estate?
Well, for getting into real estate was actually because somebody who I admired in my family, my great aunt, she was a real estate agent. And I was at this point in my life where my husband, we were traveling around because of his business and his work. And then I was just kind of floundering in life. We all hit those stages of our lives. And he looked at me one day and said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And at this point, we've been married several years. It was pre-kids. And I finally said, "You know what? I'm going to call up my aunt because I used to spend summers with her. And I have no idea what she did, but I spent the entire summer with her. And we had so much fun. And all I knew was we drove around. We would do all these wonderful things. Once in a while, she'd stop into an office or once in a while stop into a house. But we just had a blast all summer." And so I called her up and said, "Aunt Jen, what was it that you did for work?" And she goes, "Oh, darling, you didn't know? I was a real estate agent." And I went, "Then that's what I'm going to do." And so it was just a whim. I decided we were in Chicago at that point in time of our life. So I went, passed the test, started going to NAR all the time, every chance I could get for any kind of studies and classes. And that's actually where I got my start.
Wow. So you had fun with your aunt and didn't even know that you were being a real estate agent. You were shadowing your aunt, I think your great aunt one summer, and then you decided to get into real estate. Now, most people get in real estate, I think there's the agents who get in and get that big one-hit wonder up front. It was too easy. And then sometimes they flounder. And then you get those agents where it was like, kind of like me, it was like, "Oh my God, this is so hard," that you either figure it out or you don't. And you figure it out so well that you hit it, you kind of do really well.
Yeah.
Were you one of those, or what's your version of your success?
It was a lot of learning that I needed to do on my own. That's when I started to realize that there was not a whole lot of support from brokers for new agents. I was lucky enough in that particular brokerage that I was at very short before we moved states again, that he did give me the opportunity to understand and sit with new construction. So I was able to learn a lot and get some sales under my belt. And that helped me get started. And of course, having that ability to go down to NAR and sit through a lot of Brian Buffini classes and things like that, that was helpful. But it was funny that Brian Buffini works by referral. And I was the new kid in Chicago. We only lived there a couple of years, and then we moved to another state. But it still was such a great training ground. I learned so much.
So a lot of something that you've said a few times already is NAR. There was a new construction opportunity, so that kind of like gave you a little spark, but it was really getting involved in the community, getting involved with National Association of Realtors.
It was, absolutely.
Right, which is funny because we may or may not go there, but there's a lot of headlines around the NAR.
Well, you have to keep in mind, this was in 1989.
Right. And this isn't even that we won't go there because it's not what the interview is about. But I would just say to whoever's listening I don't know that I have a lot of opinions around a lot of things, but in the general subject, headlines are one thing, reality is another. And I'm still curious to know. I've done a lot of studying myself, but you never know it all, right? You never know what's really going on. But in that, it's really just engaging with your community and looking at how I can learn more, become more of a part of my community. Now, when you became an agent, well, first of all, you didn't answer the other question. So we're going to go back to the other question, then we're going to get back into your story. Because so everybody, we're talking to the affiliate, the owner and a top broker in the country of Huntsville, Alabama for Sotheby's International Realty. like, I'm going to do a side comment. Like, this is a little side example. You got like, I don't know, 600 or something Google reviews alone. And so besides all of the sales that you've done in your career and running team that you've done in career, but as you look at like your career of being this agent who became a Sotheby's owner, who remains to be a top agent, who has cutting edge marketing. I mean, everything you do is you don't just get in a box and fit. You're doing things ahead of the curve. Whatever looks impossible, you're going to prove it's not.
Absolutely.
So as you look at your business and doing that in your business, what is like when you say, what would define that success? When you describe your success, what is it? And what is the thing about your success? And don't be too humble, please. Don't get too late, right? Like let's show some ego. Like, what's that big thing you've hit that you're the most proud of?
You know, I do believe it is when I did get started here in Huntsville. And it was because that was when I had the first ability to be able to be solid in one location, be able to decide to set some roots down. Because keep in mind, I had a 4-year period of time where I was just doing nothing but learning and traveling between 3 different states. And I also gave birth to 2 children in this time frame of those 4 years. So it was a learning time for me and adapting. And also I gained licensures in 3 different states. So I gained so much knowledge, but I was not able to always implement as much as I would like to because I was never able to settle down and settle some roots. So once I gave birth as a second child, I had told my husband, I decided we were going to Huntsville, Alabama. And he was an amazing support. He always is. He still is an amazing support person of me. So he said, all right, let's do it. We pretty much had no real plan, except for the fact that I knew I needed human interaction and I could not be a stay-at-home mom. That was way too hard for me mentally. And I needed to be with other adults. And so I moved to Huntsville because my parents were transferred here and I wanted to have that backing and support for them or from them. So that was, I got my license. I moved in with my parents without telling them. I came home for Christmas with a U-Haul truck and 2 babies.
I was going to say you had kids and a husband.
Yes. And moved into their cute little 1,500 square foot home, 3 bedrooms. And all of us just showed up for Christmas and moved in. And they were gracious enough to keep us and allow us to stay there until I was able to earn enough in sales, which I literally did by closing, getting my license in January and started door knocking and pulling my girls in wagons behind me to go door knocking. Since I didn't have a sphere, my parents are sweet, but they're introverts and they live out in an outlying city of Huntsville. Yeah. They didn't have a big network and they were still newish to town as well. So I know I needed to get out there, but I didn't have a savings. I didn't have a real plan besides knowledge of what I thought I needed to do from books for real estate. I needed to get involved and immersed into the community. And in doing that of literally licensure and pulling the girls in the wagon, I had enough sales under my belt by May to be able to purchase our first home and get out of my parents' house. And so
in 5 months, you went from, I just got my license
in a new town
to you're buying a house. Wow. Okay. Like there's a few things. There's the end of it that you're knocking on doors, right? But there's a lot more to it. I would just, we've never talked about this, but I think sometimes people think knocking on doors is just knocking on doors and just saying something. There's a lot more to it than that. It's because the other end I would go into is sometimes in this business, people will say, yeah, but he knew everybody. He had a network. And I would say just as not having a network can be one of the most challenging things in a business. Having a network can be the most detrimental if you haven't figured it out yet or if you're not hungry enough. And the most amazing thing about not having a network is the opportunity to build the one you want and to build your own.
Right.
So you went out there and you did whatever it took. There was, it's like Horst Schultz says, you can make excuses or you can get innovative and make it happen.
Absolutely.
That's not his exact wording, but his a quote very similar. It literally says, do we want excuses? There's excuses, and then there's using what we've got and making it an opportunity. And that you did the latter. Now, how did you, whether it's people listening to us who are going, that's great, you were successful because it was all lined up for you. I would say everything was not lined up for you, and you made everything not lined up for you be something lined up for you. Right. In all of that, like, what was going on in here and in here that drove you, despite anybody in their right mind would have told you what you think you're going to do is impossible?
My parents always told me whatever I want to do, I'm going to be able to achieve. So my parents were I grew up with such a great support system in my life. They couldn't do things for me financially, but they absolutely raised me well and strong mentally. And so I was already driven and determined I was going to make it happen because, I just knew nothing else but I could. When I moved here, it was very unique and I had some other people in my life telling me I can't do this, and that was a driver for me. But moving here to the South, I just was shocked at how many people wanted to push me down and tell me I was not adequate or smart enough, or because I was a female in a Southern town where we have a good old boy network, that I wasn't accepted. I was an outsider. And that just really made me dig my heels in even more. I am that personality where even some of my agents will laugh because I'm also very competitive in sports. Not as much anymore now that I'm getting to a certain age, but I used to be really, really competitive. And if anybody just would say, get in my face and tell me I can't do something, I would always smile and I just wouldn't react. I would just show them. And that was pretty much what I did. I had a lot of things happen. I shook a lot of trees, but I also created a lot of waves. And it took me about 3 years in our community to even be accepted by our local board, which was unfortunate. But again, I just learned so much from the adversity and from people wanting to see me fail. It just drove me all that much harder.
So true, isn't it? It's as much as it hurts in the moment. I hate to even say it, but that adversity can really drive you to prove no, it's not that way. Just thinking about this, so many things. So first of all, it's funny because in business, the one thing I love about real estate is it's kind of a woman's world, but in many ways it's still not.
Right.
And then on the next level, it's funny how I hadn't thought about this, but my husband and I were having a conversation literally probably 2 days ago. And we were talking about the Great Recession. He's like, yeah, Jerry, because I was pregnant with a baby on the way. No, actually when it was the worst, I think I had a baby on the way. And he said, I just will never forget, with another baby. And he said, I will never forget, there was never a discussion of how difficult times were. You just went. It was like that mother in me was and he was doing his part too, but he had been there was this whole component of being a developer that made things really tough, that showed me the place and the way to step up and bring it all together for the whole family. And you just do it. What is it?
Yeah, that there's
right? Is it women are just better?
Maybe it is another.
I'm serious, but I'm out. Right? No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When I started, it was during the Great Recession. So also everybody was like, how did you build your business during that time? I was
best time to do it.
2004 getting my license and starting. I was rookie of the year by the end of the year. And then I was forced out of my company in 2009, which pushed me into launching my own boutique company literally across the street from them. And all of that happened during the worst economical time in real estate at that point in time. But I was like, if it's already the bottom, I have nowhere else but to go up. You can't go down from the bottom. We're there. So everybody else was getting upset and worried about it, but I wasn't getting upset or worried except for worrying about my people or when transitional happened. But I was never worried about me and my next sale.
Wow. Well, it's like everybody else, everybody else is worried about what they had to lose. Mm-hmm. All you had to focus on was what you had to gain.
Yes.
So as you look at that, you go into real estate, obviously you're competitive. As you came into it, what was your biggest lesson or the biggest challenge that you ever came, and what did you learn from it?
Um, I think especially when you're in the industry as long as I have now, because it's now been, we just had our 20-year anniversary of being here in Huntsville, of moving here. And that first transition year was 2009 when I was pushed out of that company I was at, and I didn't want to. It wasn't something I had on my radar. I was happy. I was in my lane. I had my blinders on, and I was a racehorse, and I had built my team as such that they were around me, making sure that I was able to just rotate through. I was taking 5 to 7 listing appointments a day, and it was almost a drive-through. I just pull up, they gave me all the files, the appointments. I went out, I did them, I came back, they would process them, and we'd start over the next day. And I had an incredible, beautiful team. That's how we grew so well. But then when I was forced out, and I had to decide on a Friday what to do with all my listings, because they did call all of our clients. At that point in time, I think I had 60 active listings. I was the only person doing listings on my team. I had 3 buyer agents. That
Wow.
I had to decide what that. I actually told my assistant today with the company, like, we know what's required of us by state law. You do it, file it, name the company, whatever the heck you want. I need to focus on getting the clients and all of us moved, because I needed to be sure my agents were safe. My customers hopefully would be loyal to us, and thankfully 100% were. And I wanted to ensure that my employees, which at that time I had 2, were safe and protected. I mean, if I failed, I had 5 people counting on me, and that's all I thought about. So I just focused on getting that done. And that was really a hard phase because it was such a kick in the gut. But that lesson was that through that, I learned so much. I grew so much. I had more name recognition. I didn't think I was all that great. Not that, and nobody should be saying I'm that great and tooting
Yeah, I
around.
know what you mean. Yeah.
I was just kind of thinking, almost like that little girl of, gosh, I'm just still struggling. I'm on the treadmill, and now I'm knocked over again. But instead of that happening, because of the move, I started having an increase in phone calls. All of my business coaches and advisors at that time, mentors, all told me when I called them and let them know what happened, they said, expect to have a decrease in your business of 30 to 35%. It happens every single time whenever you start your own brokerage, because you're no name. You have no name whatsoever in your
Not
community.
you.
We had a 30% increase that very first year of us opening. And then it just continued for about a period of 8 years running of just a nice steady increase. And so the phone calls we received in were things like, I thought you already owned that company that you were with. I actually had called in and asked for you, but they said you were out on appointment. So they took the appointment. I didn't know they weren't associated with you because it was an agent who was sitting on call. I just had so many.
Right. Well, what's so interesting is this is kind of starting to answer the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So you got pushed out. What caused the push? Like, give us this. Can you take us back to the ground of the moment and what transpired and how it happened and why it happened? And
I
tell us the story.
thankfully, I did have a good business coach that I was getting advice from. And just looking at P&Ls as a simple, what it is, based off of my commission split and our P&L, our expenses, I couldn't stay there without having an adjustment to my split but he said, always go with a solution. So don't just say, I want a better split, because that's just not the right way to go about it. Yeah. And also remember, in 2009, no brokerages were supportive of teams. And I was a team, because most brokers felt they were prima donnas, and rightly so. I mean, I've met a lot of them, so there were many. I just was doing my best not to be that kind of person.
Yeah.
So I was always transparent, very authentic, and I communicated with my broker quite often. So she was very fully aware of everything I was doing, just because I thought that was proper to do.
Yeah.
So I came to her and said, okay, here's my numbers, here's my P&L, fully exposing everything. And I said, so based off of this, I need to either have an adjustment to my split, or I would like to buy into the company and be able to be a shareholder, or I need more office space because I only had a teeny little office still.
Yeah.
And I think I had a 4th option. Now I honestly can't remember what it was, but I know I had at least 3. And she said, okay, thank you. I'll take that under consideration. I'm going to bring that to the other 2 owners. There was 3 owners in total, and I'll get back to you. So that was, let's say it was a Wednesday. Friday was when I got the call that they were changing the locks on the doors and I was no longer welcome. And that they had already called all my clients and my clients were calling us freaking out. So that was it. And when I did come and spoke to her, I said, I think there's been a mistake. I don't know what happened, but for some reason I've been called by the secretary to be told that I'm kicked out and that all my clients are calling saying the secretary called to tell them that their home was about to be moved off the market away from me. And she said, well, yes, because I'm the broker. I own all the listings and I can't trust you anymore because you've already told me that you're looking at moving. And if I can't trust you, then you have to go.
Wow.
And so it was hard, it was hurtful.
Yeah.
But again, all my advisors said, we told you that would happen. I said, yeah, but I didn't. I told them on like, that won't happen. That won't happen to me.
Wow. But it's like some of the biggest problems and the worst chaos in our life presents the greatest opportunity.
Absolutely. Yes. So I feel like, well, one, like I said, it was not on my radar to open my own brokerage. And two, it was,
And you
sometimes
might not have if
not
you'd
the
had time to
nest.
think about it when you weren't left an option. But
Yeah.
number one, it wasn't even on your radar to open a brokerage. Number two,
Yeah. God pushes you
well,
out on the nest to see if you can soar. And then it happened to be that my broker friend who I called, it was a commercial broker. And I said, it was because of, again, Friday. And I said,
yeah,
I've been pushed out and I don't know where to go. Do you have any building I can rent? And he said, actually, the one across the street, would you be open to it? And I went, I mean, if it's in my budget. And I told him my budget and he said, it's actually, I own the building. I'll make it work for you. So, I mean, it was like a godsend. It just all fell in place so quickly and so easily. I, I was stressed, but I was not, there was a lot of stress that was taken away that I didn't appreciate until looking back to see
yeah,
how wonderful it was set up.
serendipitous. I mean, it was like there was a hand in that. Like this is how it needs to be now.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
So when you look back at that, I know you said one thing about when it happened, it seemed so bad and so hard, and your business was supposed to go down and it went up, and you had all of these people show up for you, probably because you had been showing up for them in ways that was just who you were. What was the biggest thing you learned? Like, if there was like that one lesson you'd sum up from it, what or the top three even?
I feel like you should always be kind, always forgive, and always realize that it's not always about you. So when I think about, I wanted to react in kindness. I was hurt and I was mad, which so my, that again, little girl in me wants to kick him and fight back. But I was like, but that's not what I should do. That's not the way I should act. And that's not the way I would want to be treated either. And
Yeah.
hopefully, and I knew also thinking like, I don't know the full story. I know obviously they didn't want me. I don't understand why, but there's something more to this than what I know. So I had to let go of it and just move forward. And again, being the horse with the blinders on, I just needed to focus. Well, when I did have my grand opening, which was, maybe 6 to 8 months, I think it was 8 months later, of opening. And it was a team-centric brokerage. So we only opened as Amanda Howard Real Estate, but it was only for my team. I did not take independent agents. I invited the owners, the broker owners who I had worked for previous, along with everybody else in the community that I love. I invited them as well to the open house. And when the two owners out of the three came, they were just so sweet and they gave me a hug and they're like, their eyes welled up. I could tell they were just sincerely proud of me. And I asked
Wow.
them, like, I'm so, one, I was so glad that they came. And then they said, we just, we're so proud of you. We knew you would be something bigger and better one day. And we're your biggest fans. And I'm like, well, that's so great.
Wow.
You want me to stay with the company? And they said, well, of course we wanted you to stay with the company. You never came and talked to us. And I said, well, yes, I did the proper protocol of going to the broker, who is also one of the owners. And I said,
Yeah.
didn't she go talk to you? She said she was going to talk to you. And I could just tell from the look they exchanged, they had no idea. But they didn't, nobody got thrown under the bus. They just exchanged a look and said, we are so sorry. And we are still so proud of you and we love you. And so they continued their relationship with me and I continued to have a good relationship with them. And now I actually do have a decent relationship with that other broker now. But within, I mean, it was a very short period of time after that, there was a disbursement and a breaking up of that brokerage, and they all went separate ways.
Wow.
I mean,
Amanda,
we
you
obviously
just
had
started,
something going on
right?
internally that was not, it didn't have anything to do with me.
No, it's amazing. Well, wait, back to what you said. So everybody, make sure everybody heard it. We were talking about what the lessons were. Always be kind, always forgive, and always remember it's not about you. And that keeps the blinders on to keep doing the right thing because I was, it's like, what is persistence? There could be a lot of different kinds of persistence, but when there's a persistence in making the best choices you can possibly make with the resources that you have, like be kind, forgive, and remember it's not about you. Be persistent in that. I think that I would say that that's a common denominator in your life and career that has kept you on this path of, despite, a lot of people see somebody successful and think, oh, it was just easy. No, it was hard, but your response to it was be kind, forgive, and remember it's not about you. And in doing that, it gave you the action to propel you forward no matter what comes your way.
Right. I'm glad it came out that way because I had not thought of it that way, but I mean, it's 100% what I believe in and how I do my best to continue to make our decisions moving forward.
Yeah.
And again, you just gain so many lessons from every adversity gives you a new lesson to learn. I think I'm a more empathetic person to our agents that come to me now, especially now that we're an independent brokerage that offers, independent agents to come in with their own teams and their own setups, as well as we have multiple. So I have a team, but as well as we have multiple teams here. And we kind of use mine as, I use mine as the beta testers. So I use them as the training ground of new agents to come in. They have a place to be trained and shine, as well as other agents in my company who have teams. They get to see how it works because I have an open door policy, so they can come in for all of the trainings. They can come in for scripts and dialogues. They know my accountability, and I also know how to run and start multiple different ways or multiple teams in different ways. Because I always say there's different ways to skin a cat, but you always end up with the same way. Same result.
Right. Exactly. So when you look at running your team,
Mhm.
how is it? There's so many different ways to structure teams, but let's talk about
There we go.
what have you learned about running a team, and what works best for you?
What I've learned is all agents need accountability, but not all agents want it. So that's why many are
Mhm.
independent.
Will you
And
say that
then
again? Say that again so everybody got that. All
all
agents need,
accountability, but not all agents want it.
they all need it, but they don't want it. That is so true. Okay, so keep going.
Once you have accountability, you advance quicker and you make more money, even on a team. And I've now been able to prove it financially many different ways. Again, every way you could structure it. Anybody who comes onto a team ends up making more money much quicker, as well as some have left the team to go back to an independent side, and immediately their business drops. And I love numbers. It's funny, it's not my personality to like numbers, but I sure have grown to love numbers because I use it so
We have
much
that in
coaching
common.
and training for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can show them in their numbers and they can see it themselves. Like, yeah, if I would just hire a coach, because I do tell them, like, if you don't want to utilize me and the skills and the things that we offer here, our services that we offer, hire an outside coach, hire Jerry, hire
Yeah.
whoever resonates to you, because it's
Yeah.
a personality thing. So whoever's going to fit for you or be your opposite to push you when you know you need to be pushed.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, so talk about, I was going to add to that, but let's get into accountability. It's when you look at accountability. So one of the things about running a team, pure and simple accountability. People don't want it, but they need it if they want to make more money.
Mhm.
What is, when you say accountability, walk us through what that is to you.
I was going to say, because then that's the other thing is a lot of teams that fail is because the team leader doesn't want to hold them accountable because it's hard. If you're to hold somebody accountable consistently is hard. It's not fun. So for me, what that looks like is we do have an expectation that all agents that are on the team have to be in the office by a set time 4 out of the 5 days a week. Because I was telling, there's if you're selling real estate, and you're in it full time, you most likely are working on the weekends. So go ahead and pre-plan that there's one day within the week that you're going to take for yourself. And then work. I expect you to be in here honing your craft and improving your skill sets, just like the pro athletes do, 4 out of the 5 days of the week. And then we have a sales meeting once a week that's going over things that are important, whether it's industry changes, internal office information, and new listings. But then also the other 3 days, we have scripts and dialogues or a master class. So the agents know what they're getting every day. And it's because it's consistent. They know it's at the same time. We start with a huddle. They know they're going into a class or a specialty or scripts and dialogues. So they know they're getting something of value every 4 days out of that week. And that's just I guess that's the base level, because then it does go into, we dive deep.
So you're basically, so in short, you're instilling habits with a consistent schedule and a consistent, it's got to be this, or giving them those boundaries of you do this or this isn't the place for you.
That's exactly right. Because somebody came in at one point and said, but I'm a 1099. And I said, exactly. But how are you going to, if you wanted to leave your 6-figure career and come here to get into real estate, you're not just going to make 6 figures.
Let's like go into a train
up at 11 and coming in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. But it reminds me of like, I've got a trainer who's going to get me fit, and they say, but I'm paying you. I don't have to do that workout. No, you don't. But you're also not going to get fit if you don't do it.
Yeah. All right. So it's, yes, you're a 1099. You have the option to come in or to not come in. But I also have the option to allow you on my team or to not allow you on my team.
Might
so
drop,
it's,
right?
Yeah, we got to have a win-win situation for both of us. And we have to work well together, and you need to be open to coaching. And I have to be committed to you to coach you. So it's we're in this together.
A 1099 doesn't make it a one-way street. That's not how 1090. It's still business, right? It's still, we've got to make money, and money, if you print it, we all see what happens. It's not good, right? Like there's no value if you don't actually show up and deliver what creates value for people and creates deals and opportunities. And, I could go on a Jerry Metcalf rant, but I won't.
Right.
Or I might.
No. Going over those KPIs and dollar productive activities, DPAs. I mean, that's what we dive into that,
So give us your acronyms. You say is it KP?
KPIs, key performance indicators. So that's, of course, making sure that you're.
What are you doing that's turning over? Doing what you need. What are you doing that turns over an outcome? And what of your activities turns out gives you the best outcome?
Yes. Yeah. And then, I'm sorry, was that a question, or were you?
No, I was repeating what you said. Or
Yeah.
you can make, the idea is I be quiet and you keep talking. So if something I say spurs it on, bring it on, Amanda. But yeah, it's what are you doing? Are you doing what we know creates an outcome? And is there anything you're doing that works especially well for you? When we talk about KPIs, is it key production indicators?
Yes, key productive.
Right. Key production indicators. So you've got Go ahead, say that again.
And making sure you're focused on your dollar productive activity, so your DPAs. So what I advise is that their day is half and half, because there's so many agents that I find even myself. I mean, for some reason this week I've been doing that of not going back to my basics that I know I need to sit down, I need to focus on my list and then just knock it out. But some days I come in and I'm just kind of spinning my wheels because I'm not focused. I didn't make a plan, I didn't make a list, and I didn't have somebody accountable to. So I'll spin my wheels, and because it happens to all of us. And I think agents do that so much, where they're just like, God, I worked all day. Like, great, what did you achieve? Like, I have no idea.
What did you do? Yeah, exactly.
Because you didn't track it, and you didn't ensure that you were focused on half the day being DPAs and the other half being the supportive work, which is things that feel like you're busy, but they're only supporting those DPAs. So we do talk about,
what's making the dollar, what's supporting the business versus where are you doing deals, and where are you supporting the doing of deals?
Yes, exactly.
Because there are people who support doing deals all the time, but when the deal shows up to be done, they just kind of don't close it, and they just go support something else. And it's almost like almost doesn't count. Or there's the song Best Friend. She's my best friend.
Yes, I love that song.
I can't remember the name of those girls, but they have another song called Fast or something like Fast. I was in the car for way too long this weekend, and they have this song. There's this one, it's called Fast, and they only say it once, but it's about winning and how they like to win. They go, rule number one, don't beat number two. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, replay, replay. I love that. But back to your point of all of this is I can serve and do well and have all these great leads. But if I don't do the deals, if I don't go in and close them and serve the business, all of this other stuff doesn't really count. I think when you can leverage those things, it comes to building a team. Also, for everybody listening, like a lot of what you're saying in this business, especially coaching, I find or people, this business, it's like, we're not building a house. We're not always calling the shots exactly to sell, when to sell, what to buy, how to buy. People change their minds. We don't know what's coming. It starts feeling like this is just all like playing the odds. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it goes back to, what are the things we do control, and how do we implement and allocate what we do control that best creates an outcome? And what's fascinating about that is the more we understand these things and implement them, that's where I found in my business. What I love about coaching is once you understand that and place those, you end up realizing whatever goal you set that you thought was aspirational was actually not. It was actually kind of a low goal, because you start realizing how much more you're capable of than you even thought.
Right.
Now, when you structure a team, accountability is one thing, but you've got agents, you've got roles agents play, you've got, administrative support, you've got the branding of it all. What works best for you in building your team? Like, what's the structure?
For me, I have focused on specialists. I don't know if that's going to remain that way forever, but it certainly has worked for me for the last, 19, 18 years that I've had the team of my 20 years. And it's that I focus on them being experts because I can easily explain it to the consumer. They're able to easily explain it to the consumer with our elevator speeches that we make sure pitches that they know very well. And because we're still a buyer beware state, which is unique in the in the United States. So because of all those factors, that's why we've chosen to specialize. And I think it works best for us. So that's why I've got my buyers team. They just work as a buyer specialist. I do have a couple hybrid agents who have earned that ability and right to because of their experience level. So again, you have to prove it. Then I have listing partners where they only focus on, they're really good at getting the listing, closing the deal, and negotiating for our sellers to the best of our ability. So we have that consistent result of high customer service and a high customer response rate, showing us strong testimonials that they do love that service, that they know we have specialists that are always exclusively representing them.
Well, when you talk about specialists, right, like I always say, there's 3 reasons to get hired. Because you're the cheapest, because you're the least worst. Number 2 is usually the reason why they hire a lot of agents, if they're not hiring the cheapest. But there's only one reason you want to be hired, and it's the third one, because you're the best. Mm-hmm. So structuring a team. Yeah. Well, I get concerned, right? Usually you get what you pay for. So when people buy really, and people, like you may know this, but of all the money spent in the world, 30% of the movement of money, according to economists, is people buying the commodity market. It's the cheap. It's just, I'm buying it because it's the cheapest. 70% of the money that gets moved around is being moved around because it's the most expensive, or not because it's because it's the best, because it's what I want, because it's the best to me, for me. It's the best in the world, but world isn't the whole world. We all have our own world. Right. Like it's structuring your team to be the best in the world for your client.
Yes, exactly.
So more questions. I had, because you said specialist. I was like, yes, exactly. The best. That's it. Nobody wants anything, but does anybody want to buy? The only way I'm going to buy something that's not the best is because it's cheap. And then I'm going to still second guess it and go back and buy the best later on.
And in our market specifically, because we have the highest population of engineers in the world in our city, the highest population of rocket scientists in the world in our city. So we
didn't even talk about that. I love that.
Really smart people in this community. And so they all question price. They're all cheap, even though they can afford it. And it's just something we know we're going to have to overcome every single time, unless they've used us before. So if they've used us before, then we don't have to overcome it. But it's it's a daily conversation, and we just go ahead and start. We are not.
You know what I love about that? Here's what I love about that. I heard somebody talk about, the market and the pressures it puts on us. I'm like, whoa. Pressure or opportunity? Is there pressure or is there opportunity? Like these conversations give you because you have a consumer who's listening and thinking about what they're buying. You have an opportunity to make sure that it gives you the feedback to be the best. You have the opportunity to be the best, and you have an audience who cares. You have an audience who's looking and listening for the best. It's not pressure, it's opportunity. It's a huge opportunity that's elevated your business. So going back to this team structure. So I'm getting excited about these things you're saying. I'm like, yes, it's being the best. Exactly. And when clients meet you and they question it, that's not a challenge. It's a challenge or opportunity. The other thing though, let's go back in this team structure. So you've got a team you've got buyer agents. Then you have agents who, when they qualify, they represent both. You have people who are very good at listings. And so when the clients come on, they understand that when they hire you for whatever they need, they are getting the best in selling, in moving and selling and buying their homes in Huntsville. Now, so you've got that aspect of it. And then that's kind of like that's the DPA, right? Those are the DPA side of your team. Then you've got the KPI side of your team. They're supporting this business, this deal making. What does that part look like?
Our support team is incredible. I rely on them very heavily, as we all do in our team. And we hire the best. We're not looking for, we used to start where I didn't find anybody who knew what they were doing. So we just knew we had to hire and train. But we're at that level now. And also our people have grown with us as such that we've got some that have been with us over 10 years. And they just I don't plan for them to leave anywhere. And they tell me they don't plan to leave anywhere. And we also know, we've had confirmation from an attorney's office that our closer is the highest paid in the entire state, but she's worth every penny.
Wow.
Because she not only is there backing our agents and knows her stuff, but she has a direct line to anybody at HUD, at every closing office, at FHA. And she can call and she can move a file from the bottom to the top. She has these relationships she has built across the whole state that not only knowledgeable and supportive and loves our agents, she's our biggest fan. She's an advocate for all of us here, but she also helps them get the deal closed if they get into trouble. I mean, our agents are good closers, but there's some things that, I don't know who to call it, FHA or whatever it would be. I don't even want to. I don't want to have to figure that out.
That's her lane.
That's why it's so great to have such good people. And we do have closing department, listing department, marketing department, a runner who we all love. Our runners he's phenomenal. He's getting ready to leave for college and we're really sad, but and we have ISAs, inside sales agents. We have two.
So you've got your runner, you've got your ISAs, which are the guys making the calls. You've got, and who is a runner, ISAs, closer, and this is just team, by the way. So runner, ISAs, closer, and what else? Do you have listing admin?
Yeah, we have the listing.
Or is that the office support?
We have the listing and closing department as one now.
Okay, and so basically transaction.
Our marketing team to 2.5.
Now, is that for the team or is that for the? Because
it's for both.
Okay, that's awesome. So you've got a runner who can get out there and run things. You've got your inside salespeople who are making the calls to generate more opportunities for the team. You've got your person who's closing, who's making it happen. And then you've got administrative support from listings, again, all the way across to the closing that gets it. It's like that admin support that goes from marketing there's marketing, listings, and then the closing part, and then the closer that seals the deal, wraps it in a bow, and makes sure it all goes nicely.
That's right.
Wow.
And it's nice that we have it that was another advantage to the independent brokerage side now that we've been able to create this great place that we have where we have independent agents and our team agents. It's necessary. We had to have them for our team and they grew with us. So when we had the independent brokerage side, now we just are able to add it as either additional services that we know we can provide for our agents, just because of the way we've structured things. Or
Yeah.
it's a fee per service. If they want an additional service, they don't have to go hire another digital designer. They can just utilize our people that we have in-house for a lot less for whatever that custom creation piece is that they need. So we
And
have
they're
some,
already trained to do what they need to do to align for real estate, to align for the brand, and to enhance the agent's brand and all of that good stuff.
we had one agent who came over. He was a top producing at another company, and he had been watching us for a while once we affiliated with Sotheby's. And he finally decided to take the leap, come over. And within 3 months, he dropped his assistant because he was one tired of training an assistant every 4 months, is what he had said, because they
Yeah.
would quit or, something just would happen. And he said it was slowing him down. And when he realized that he was at a brokerage that had such strong support that was already trained to go, he was like, I was able to fire her and just utilize that. And I saved so much money and multiplied my sales by
Exactly.
resources.
Well, one of the biggest challenges, like when you get into real estate, the biggest challenge, and there's a lot of focus out there on business development. But once you figure out that business development, the next challenge is being able to service the business well and continue to grow. And that's all about leveraging the right people and the right resources. So you seem to have a knack for it. What's the key?
People. I mean, it's hiring the
Yeah.
right people.
Hiring and training. You said something earlier about you hired people who didn't know what they were doing. And I kind of laughed, but really I thought that might have been a big advantage, because if you've got to train them, you're going to train them to do the job. You're going to have to know what you need. A lot of people think if I just hire somebody who's good at this, they'll know what to do. They'll pull it off. And that's usually the worst place to be, because that's not how it works. You got to set people up for success. So you were able to train people. You had to know what you needed and then train the people to do it, which probably took a lot of time. But in that, over time, I bet there was a lot of in the weeds time to figure that out. And then over time, it's probably gotten streamlined. Like, walk us through the bumps and what you learned and how it didn't work and does work so well now.
When we're going so fast and you hire somebody new, we've absolutely made mistakes like that where we would say, all right, so glad you're hired. Here's our manual. We're busy. We're closing deals. So read
Figure it
and
out.
then Google it. If you have a question, just Google it. I mean, that was pretty much just because some of the questions that would come in, I'm like, did you Google it first? And if they said no, I'm like, you were so close to not.
Or at least don't bring me a problem without at least trying to give me a solution. Just try to bring me a solution. Just make the effort. So, we've talked about literally pulling your kids around in the wagon back in the recession and knocking on doors of people you don't know to generate business and opportunities, to now being a Sotheby's owner and a top agent in Sotheby's, not just Huntsville. Like this, there's a big difference there. In this journey, what's been your biggest epiphany or aha about this business?
Through all the struggles and the training and the learning, that's necessary, and things are hard, but it doesn't have to be so hard as we make it out to be. And I think we hold ourselves back because of that. For myself, I get too much in my head and I'll make something a lot more complicated than it has to be. And so I really rely on the guidance of my business coaches or my husband, who is my mentor at this point in my life, because you get so difficult so you need that one person who knows you best.
Anchor.
And
Yeah.
he's absolutely my anchor. And he will say, Amanda, you've just overcomplicated this. You are not happy. You're not, when I'm not in balance and I'm not being true to myself and I'm not having fun, I'll overcomplicate it. Or sometimes I might create chaos because I'm bored. And then it's like, then I'm getting all whirled up and he's like, why are you whirling out of control? And they go, you're bored, aren't you? And I'm like, oh, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm creating problems, or I'm creating chaos, or I'm making something more complicated than it's necessary just because
Yeah.
of who we are, maybe as innate driven people.
Yeah.
And learning to embrace the ease and make things simplified and have a lot more fun with it. And I'm loving it even more now.
Like, what a great, but it's like no matter where you are in this world in business, that is some of the best advice. That's what I think, because it's just so true. And to hear it from somebody who's come so far, it's like, look, like no matter where you are and what you're doing, that's a great thing to just remember. Don't ever complicate it. Like, be present, appreciate what you've got, simplify this. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's hard, but we don't need to make it harder.
Right, right. And one of those key things that we hear from was it Jeffrey Gitomer, I believe, that says the top 10.5 things to be successful. One of
Yeah.
them is if you're not having fun, what's the point? We say
Amen to
that a lot in our brokerage because it's something I do want to live by. And it is so true that if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I love
Right.
being in that place where I can say that, where before when you're starting out and you're struggling, and sometimes it isn't fun, but you have to in a building phase, understand not everything's going to be fun. But
Yeah.
once you have built it and you have hit a level of success, that's when my husband came to me and goes, when's enough going to be enough? What's your next goal? You've accomplished everything you set out to do. So now just realize if you're not having fun, stop doing it. And that was really key for me.
Oh, love that. And it's the funny thing, I bet it got a lot of stuff out of your way and gave you a lot more growth or anything else that you wanted.
Oh, absolutely. It did. And he's happier. So it's fun that we're now in a different stage of our life. We're now empty nesters. We have a grandbaby and our business is flourishing. We're growing. And now I'm excited about other things that we get to work on together as growth projects and expanding our brokerage together because it's things that are now fun rather than we have to, it's work or it's necessary. It's none of those things. It's because it's fun for me now to help other people achieve their goals. And that's really exciting to just have the people who are with us within our world who raised their hand and said, I want to be a leader or I want to grow a team and I want you part of it. Then we're all in with them. And that's where we're having a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, we're going to go into the final three. So question number one, as you look at all of the success, if you had to narrow this all down to one resource that has recreated it or your strongest resource in creating your success, what is that?
Gosh, I feel that the strongest resource has to be yourself because if you cannot master your own thoughts and your own self-control and your own discipline, no matter what coach you hire or which company you're with or what your broker is or what your sphere of influence is like, none of that matters if you can't master your own self-control in your mind.
Wow. I don't even know if we've ever gotten that answer on the show. But like, exactly. I love it. Question number two. When you think about all the books that you've read, and it doesn't have to be business, it could be anything, but what is a book? It's like, that's a game changer. That's a book you've got to read. What is it? What's been the most impactful one for you?
Gosh, there's so many good, it's going to be the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team because it's something that just came to me again because it's our required reading. It's whenever there is something going awry or I feel it in the culture, something's off, we go back to it and I'll say, let's do a book club. We're pulling out the 5 Dysfunctions again. And it's funny, the people who've been with me for a decade, they're now like, ooh, it's going to be good. And the people who've been with me like 5 years are like, again, why? I don't get it. And then people are brand new are like, oh, shoot, what's going to happen?
Exactly.
It is really such a great book that I keep going back to, even though there's a million great books out there.
Yeah.
That one is just a core principle book. If you're building a team, and it doesn't even have to be a team, it's just, we do it with our support staff. It's just important in creating a cohesive group, a culture where you're communicating and understanding that if you don't start with a level of trust, you're never going to get to those results that you want to achieve. So we talk about the triangle and that there's a reason why that's the foundation.
Yeah, it's trust. So your biggest takeaway from it obviously is does trust sum it up, or what would you add to that? Your biggest takeaway from that book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team?
It's the constructive criticism and not being afraid to actually have the hard conversations. That's usually where I see things. That's when I feel things are going awry because I work between 2 different states now. And when I come back home to Huntsville, Alabama, and I come in and I just kind of feel things are off, or if you can identify things. When you're so into your business, you're observant. You need to be observant. So you observe things are just not firing on all cylinders. And when you take a step back and realize it's sometimes, well, one, they're not going to get the results if there's not full trust, but the full trust and transparency isn't there because of the lack of communication. And there's some kind of conflict happening where they're not communicating properly about it. They're going to a friend and venting to them, or they're going to someplace else to like, "Oh, I don't understand why they were talking about me," or "I don't like them because I think they're not treating me right." Like, go to the source, go to that person, go directly, because that's where the true communication happens. And you're creating drama by adding this other person that didn't need to be into the mix. As well as, if somebody is really caring about you and wants what's better for you, they're going to come to you and say, "You know what? I heard you on the phone and you kind of sucked. What I think you should do is, if you want some improvement, either come along with me and I'll do some scripts and dialogues with you, or jump into our session. We're happy to have you. But I mean, you're kind of making a mess of things." And people get their feelings hurt when they're new and they hear that. They're like, "I am perfect," or "I've been in the industry for 10 years. I can't believe they told me I did a bad job," which I hear when somebody joins us. And then, but when we have that talk with them, or once they've read the book and they're like, "Oh, they're telling me because they care about me. If they couldn't care less about me, they would treat me just like my last associate did, which was ignored me because they wanted to be better than me." Where here, we want everybody to rise together. And if we're all in this together, we have the open door policy of our training. We have open desks where people can hear and talk and improve each other's conversations. Then it builds trust. And we're also building everyone up together.
Well, anybody that doesn't want to step up to the plate, that doesn't want to elevate, that doesn't want to improve, it's going to weed them out quickly.
Mm-hmm. And we really do love weeding people out quickly.
I bet. Like we've all heard it, but hire slow, fire fast.
Yes. Yeah. It's painful. And certainly nobody, I mean, like, if you're going to hang out for a year and take up all of our valuable resources and time and still make no money, let's just get rid of you in 3 months. I'd much rather that. And then you actually be happy with us, send us your referrals, and go back to the industry that you loved, that you came from.
Exactly. And that's a win for everybody. Like, it's like triple win. So last question. From this conversation, if everybody listening forgets it all, which I doubt they will, but let's just say they do, and they remember only one thing, what would you hope that one thing is?
That you take time to focus on your mindset and yourself, and work on your own skill sets. Don't just trust somebody else is going to do it for you, or your, team leader, or your business coach, or your broker. Somebody else is not going to always invest that time and money and energy into you. They will if you pay them, or they will if they have another reason to, but you really have to do it for yourself. And it makes me sad when I see the passiveness of just especially our recent generation, where I'm talking to my girls about that. And I'm like, why am I not getting through? Why am I not achieving this goal? I'm like, because you're not being tenacious. You're not being self-motivated and driven. And why is that? You need to think deeper in yourself. Are you going after your true passions? Do you actually like what you're doing? And is it something that you truly are interested in? Maybe we need to be shifting what your focus is on, but you've got to dive into yourself and know yourself first. So I'd say start there.
Wow. Which is right back to your best resource.
Yeah.
Love it. Amanda Howard, Huntsville, Alabama, with the Amanda Howard Sotheby's International Realty office. Thank you so much for your generosity and your time, and for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me, Jerry. It's been an honor.